tell me what the question is.
I just wanted you to kind of explain it a bit more. Like I did not get it exactly.
Explain which
Like
part more.
yeah. So
Give me a sentence you want explained.
the last sentence: a hunter deals intimately with his world, and yet he's inaccessible to the same world. So what do you mean by that?
Okay. A hunter deals intimately with his world, and yet he is inaccessible to the world. Okay, this is a good point. Thank you for bringing it up. Uh, I can't remember if it's the Christians or the Muslims or both. They're mystic branches that say, be in the world but not of it. Render to Caesar, or the world, right, what is due Caesar, and the rest of you belongs to me. I think that's what Jesus said, more or less. So to be accessible to the world means that you go and you do whatever you need to do in the world. You get up, you go to work, put gas in your car, show up on time, you do your job, you do it well, you're polite to people, you deal with problems as they arise, and you try to prevent them from arising. You do your best, right? That's the world. That's the tonal. Now, the rest of you is roaming in the realm of the Nagual, the realm of the spirit, the realm of reality, the realm of it's a little bit tricky because this is an early book, and they're making a distinction, and they do. The Toltecs make a distinction between the tonal, which is everything you can see, everything you have a word for. So every concept, every name. But underneath all that, underneath is a manner of speaking, is the Nagual, which is the source of all of this. So in Buddhism, this would be the manifest content, manifest, because it's manifest to your eyes, and then the underlying content is the Buddha, or in Christianity would be the kingdom of God. The Muslims
Is
would
this
call it
what
Allah,
not?
Allah Himself, I believe. And in the Vedas, they refer to it as Brahma, I believe, or something like that. So you need to be accessible to the outside world because you have to work, you have to deal with your boss, you have to deal with your colleagues. But at the same time, there's a part of you that's behind all that, which is always in touch with the Nagual, with God, with the spirit, with Buddha nature, right? With the reality that underlies all this, the creative essence, the source from which everything arises and to which everything returns. So this is the art of the warrior, right? The art of the warrior is to be in both worlds at once. And that may take a little practice at first, but let me ask you this: when you're meditating, do you notice that there's somebody observing?
Yes,
Okay, for
yes,
now,
but it's
for practical purposes, and just for now, that thing that's observing, which is really the observing ego, observing ego is much closer to the source than the things that you're observing. And so that awareness with which you apprehend the manifest world. So we know these things are out here, and we observe them with our eyes, and with our, let's just say, the front part of our brain. But behind that, there's another observing capacity. It's a more subtle capacity. It's a capacity to observe the essence of it all. And so when you hear yourself speak and you watch yourself act, and you can almost see, so if you see yourself think something or you see yourself doing something, who's doing the seeing?
I the thinker, but
The
I
thinker. Okay, no,
I
the
don't
thinker's doing the thinking. Who's observing the thinking?
I don't know.
Okay, well
Honestly,
that
I
that
don't know.
that that unknown for now. The unknown that's unknown for now, and what you want to learn is what that is, because it's primordial awareness. It's the source itself, right? So this task is practicing watching your mind, watching your body act in the world, watching you interact with other people. But put aside, let's say for you, put aside 25% of yourself to watch the whole thing. And that would be a good preliminary practice for starting to create some space between the outside world of your senses, eyes and ears, and smells. And then there's another part of you that's behind all that, that's watching all that, okay? That's a good early practice. That's a good way to get started. Now, follow-up questions. Good question. Keep going.
Yeah, so one question. You said that awareness is close to the source. That implies these two are different things.
No. Okay, let me be clear. I'm saying that for now as a provisional. It's not close to the source. It is the source. But that's too much for you to grasp all at once. So for now, we just call it the observing part of the mind, or the observing ego, or the observing I. There's a lot of different words that they use for this in beginning meditation. But that is so close to the source that were you to take all the objects out of it, thoughts, words, concepts, not be attached to concepts, for example, you're in awareness itself. Is that making sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Follow up or new question?
Yeah, one question though. Then who is doing the deciding part? Who is acting? Like if that thing can only observe,
Your tonal is acting. Later, you'll understand the distinction between. Have they covered the tonal and the nagual?
no.
Okay, so the tonal is your body that interacts with the world. Just speaking roughly, it's the part of you that you call you until you enter into this enterprise, until you start to begin to study your mind. But that tonal is with you for your whole life. It's your body, right? It's your hair, your ears, your teeth, your fingers. That's the tonal. Now, the tonal does not exist except for the nagual. And the nagual is that foundational awareness that is the source of everything that's here. It's the creative force in the world. That's why computers aren't close to AI. They're not creative. And it's also the life force. And they aren't alive either, so we don't have to worry about that. But the point is that you actually are split. In the Toltec tradition, you'd say you're split onto your right side, which is the tonal, which is material existence. And then on your left side is, let's just call it as a shorthand, your spiritual existence, your spirit, your that essence of you that already knows all this. And what's happened in the modern world is that we live entirely in the side of reason and rationality and language and words. Right? That's actually the left side of our brain, right over here. Well, it's the left side of our brain, right over here. Are you right-handed?
No, I'm left-handed.
Okay, so for you, we don't know exactly which side of the brain it is, but in a right-handed person, it's the left hemisphere because these are crossed over. Yeah. But what we want to do is activate the contralateral, the other hemisphere. So you spend most of your life just here with one hemisphere, here. So you spend. It's hard because you're left-handed, but let me just do it for right-handed people because it's confusing enough as it is, doing this into a camera.
Yeah.
Okay, so for a right-handed person, this hemisphere, this half of the brain, controls the right hand. So the left hemisphere controls the right hand. Actually, those details aren't important. The right side is where all of the reason, all of the math, all of the logic, all of the words, your speech centers are here, all of the concepts, all of the speech comes out of here. And what we do in this work is we activate the other half of your brain, this hemisphere. And when you speak into this hemisphere, it goes to the left side of the body. And the left side of the body is where this takes place. That's how the ancient seers of Mexico described it. And it was quite sophisticated because it understood hemispheric specialization. So, and by the way, all your feelings come here from the limbic system.
Okay.
And the first visual processing occurs back here in the occipital cortex. It goes all the way across. Now, you've lived your entire life as an engineer on one side of your brain or the other, right? And what we're trying to do is mobilize the other half of your brain. The other half of your brain is the artistic, the creative, the comprehensive, the holistic, the one that can see the big picture. It synthesizes everything else. It's kind of the mystical side of your brain. It's one that hasn't been weighed down by words. And so when he advises that when you talk to people or when you talk to animals or when you talk to plants or even when you talk to power, right? And there they use power with a capital P. You speak softly and tenderly. A warrior must be very tender. A warrior is tender and kind. But also ruthless. He has to be. So have I confused you more, or shall we go? You want to do a follow-up to that?
Yeah, one more question. He also says that a warrior must use it sparingly as well. Why sparingly? Sparing.
Use what sparingly?
How should I say? The people, the plants, or animal, or power, all these things sparingly.
Well, yeah, because
Like
you don't want to get all tangled up in it, right? You don't want to get tangled up in other people's worlds, and you don't want to get too tangled up in the life of plants, you know. And you remember he's also talking somewhat about power plants, but that's not really what he's referring to here. And so you don't want to get all tangled up there until you know what you're doing. The warrior does basically everything sparingly, but he does it unflinchingly, and he does it wholly, and he does it with his whole being. So you can't be doing that all over the place. You'd just be a big mess.
Okay.
But when you're dealing with the world, always leave a part of your mind your left side, let's say. I don't want to get into the crossing of the hemispheres. Just to say the left side, that's the one you're trying to cultivate. But in your case, it may be the right side that you're trying to cultivate because you're left-handed. And so what we're doing is we're trying to develop both because we've grown up, you know, with the modern world, with coding, with screens, with words, with clever books, with people talking at us and us talking at them. And we've become lost in all of these things that are never real. A word's not real. It points to something real. So the word that points to here, to stick, is not, this word is not real. It's not the stick at all. So we come over here to the stick. Now we can study the stick. And then we find out, well, what is this made of really? And what is it really? And then we learn that we construct a stick with our vision and with our processing that we learned when we were little children, right? It'll become a lot more obvious to you as you progress. The main thing is to keep progressing. It'll be obvious. You want to follow up to that?
Yeah, one question regarding that. So I'm assuming before humans created language, were they closer to God?
Absolutely, yes.
Because they did not have it, they had non-conceptual awareness, right? Because they did not have any concepts at all.
Well, no, they had some concepts, but they didn't have as many. They didn't have language.
Got it.
But they were much closer to the earth. And see, this is where Taoism comes in. Without that conceptual language, they could live on this earth and be part of it and not separate themselves from it. And they responded to the seasons of the earth the movements of the earth and the movements of the wind and the movements of the sun even. But they did it naturally. They didn't have to like go nuts creating an artificial world in their mind. Like we live now, we're insulated from the wind. We're insulated from the ground. We're insulated from the grass. We're insulated from the animals. You know, we put the animals in cages and we go visit them once a year or something in a zoo. Well, that's a terrible way to live, and that was a big mistake on the part of the modern West. And that's why you'll find that many indigenous peoples are much closer to God and to the earth because they never left it. You know, of course, I'm not saying let's become primitive. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying let's balance it out. And this is where the Tao Te Ching, is unparalleled, unmatched. Naturalness is the way. And if you look at nature, it's unimpeded harmony. Nothing gets in the way of nature. If there's an earthquake, there's an earthquake. If there's a thunderstorm, there's a thunderstorm. If there's a hurricane, there's a hurricane. If there's a gentle breeze, there's a gentle breeze. If the trees are blossoming, they blossom. And so nature is unimpeded, and they do it together, right? So nature is unimpeded harmony. And that's what we're looking for in our lives and in our culture, in our civilization, is unimpeded harmony. And that harmony gets wrecked when we start throwing in, things like, well, this legal concept, or this definition, or this property line, or this national line, or this, on and on and on and on. And so returning to simplicity is going to be very, very important in the future because people are getting completely lost in their screens and in cyberspace and with the computers. And the computers don't tell you, hey, I'm going to show you 6 pharmaceutical labs in a row that I know is going to make 20% of you sick. And I know you're going to go out and buy that medication. I know that if I talk to you about hair loss long enough or impotence long enough, 15% of you are going to get it. And it's just, it's terrible. And, and just as an aside, as a warning to the Americans and the New Zealand people, we're the only 2 countries in the world that allow direct-to-consumer advertising of prescription drugs. Now, no other country in the world allow that, and they didn't allow it in the United States until fairly recently, from my point of view. And it's devastating to the population, but I digress. But keep going. New question, or you want to keep going here?
No, new question.
All right, may I ask, why did that question come up?
The question regarding the humans.
The tenderness, the talking to the ants, talking to the plants, talking to the... Why do you think that came up?
I just wanted to know what inaccessible meant like. And
Okay, so you could be, I'm inaccessible right now, actually. I'm not really accessible part of me is accessible. Obviously, I'm answering your questions, I'm sitting here talking, I'm shaking my finger at the camera, but a large part of me is not here at all. It's out with the clouds and the trees and the birds. And then underneath that, with the source of all our being, and this is the birthright of every human being. And it's really important if you're living in the modern world to be able to return there. That's what the secret of the golden flower, that practice, is about. So then, since we're talking about practice, once you've done this for a while, you'll be able to do it while you're walking around. You'll be able to do it while you're talking to people. For example, right now I'm turning the light around, but I can still talk. And I can still be in both places. So I'm inaccessible to the world, but I appear accessible. But in fact, I'm resting in a whole other beautiful peace that passes understanding, and where there's no problems. It takes time. It takes a bit of time. So keep going. Those are good questions. You ready for the next one?
So, yeah.
Question.
So the question is about the secret of the golden flower, especially turning the light around part.
Okay.
I think in the Afterword by Thomas Cleary.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about a Chan teacher discussing how to turn a light by just redirecting your thinking to the thinker. Like
What page are you on?
the, I think it's on page 142, I believe, around 140, 142.
I've been going to this. I'm thinking about teaching this this afterward. 142.
142, yeah. I think it's like there are also many Chan stories for initiating the golden flower exercise. Some of them are very simple.
What paragraph?
Uh, can you look at 141?
Yes, I'm looking at 141.
So, a paragraph that starts with there are also many Chan stories for initiating
Okay, all
the
right, all right.
golden flower
Okay,
exercise.
okay, good. But before we go there, that's good. That's a good thing to ask about. But before we go there, I want to read something from this. The afterword. Okay, so this book, as I've told people, you only need 6 pages. You only really need 6 pages, and those pages start on page 23. Turning the light around and tuning the breath. It's a very simple and basic practice. And I've described it in more detail on another video. So, and then that goes to page 36, right over here on this side. Now, the translators afterward is easy to miss, but you don't want to miss this. And the translators afterward, because any Clary book, you really want to get to the notes too. So, okay, I'm just going to read a bit. There are numerous Chan, Zen, and Taoist sources containing descriptions of tips and techniques for inducing, exercising, and integrating the experience of the golden flower blossoming. Now, the golden flower is a metaphor for light. And when the golden flower blossoms, the light of awareness opens up, and boom, there you are. It takes 100 days. The fundamental premise and practice are suggested in the plainest terms in the teachings of Du Hui, a famous Chan Buddhist master of the 12th century. And I quote, "Good and bad come from your own mind. But what do you call your own mind apart from your actions and thoughts? Where does your own mind come from? If you really know where your own mind comes from, boundless obstacles caused by your own actions will be cleared all at once, gone. After that, all sorts of extraordinary possibilities will come to you without you seeking them. If you really know where your own mind comes from, boundless obstacles caused by your own actions will be cleared all at once. After that, all sorts of extraordinary possibilities will come to you without you seeking them." And that's very true. And so sometimes when people first start practicing, they get synchronicities and things like that, and they get flashes of awareness when their assemblage point gets shifted, right? And so they start to see all the different possibilities. Well, you just put that on steroids, and that's what we're talking about. So now to where you were asking. Now, the other thing is you should know that Chan is the predecessor to Zen. Buddhism has an ancient history. The Chan Buddhists were the Chinese Buddhists that were the predecessors of Zen Buddhism, both in China and in Japan and in Korea. And all of them use this book. Every branch of Mahayana, the serious Buddhism, for waking up, they use this sutra, the Avatamsaka, the Golden Flower Sutra. All right. I hear a strange noise, but I don't know what's coming out of the printer. There are also many Chan stories for initiating the golden flower exercise. Some of them are very simple, but they can be used over and over again. So you use these over and over and over again. They're short. Okay, here comes the first one. A student asked the teacher, "What is Buddha?" The teacher said, "This mind is Buddha." What is Buddha? The teacher said, this mind is Buddha. Yeah, so the kingdom of heaven is within you, right? It's closer than your jugular vein. Buddha is right here, right now, always. It's the mind that has been cleared of the dirty windshield of thoughts and concepts and attachment to those things. Next one. A student asked a teacher, what should one do when arising and vanishing of thoughts goes on unceasingly? Okay, here's the student. He goes to the teacher. He's got a very good question. What should one do when arising and vanishing of thoughts goes on unceasingly? In other words, thoughts are coming and going, coming and going. He wants to ask the teacher, what should one do? The teacher says, tss, whose arising and vanishing is it? So this is the practice of Ramana Maharshi, and this is the practice of Nisargadatta. This is the neti practice. It's just put in different words, and it's a different culture at a different time. But what he's saying is, who's having the thoughts? Who's seeing thoughts come and go? And that's your question for you. When you can be in the world and watch your thoughts come and go, then you can ask yourself, well, wait a minute, who's watching these thoughts come and go? And Eckhart Tolle gives a good example of this when he, I think he was ready to kill himself. And he was, I think, I don't know how he was going to do it, but he was going to kill himself. He was very seriously depressed. And then it occurred to him, who's watching me have the idea of kill myself? And he woke up. Something along that line. I recommend that you read his stories of this, because it's good. It shows how you can be at the bottom of the barrel, feel like you're hopeless. I mean, you might as well just wipe yourself off the planet of the earth. And you're this far from realizing that your thoughts, your beliefs, your concepts, your constructs, your all the other things that the brain creates, those aren't really you. Well, they are you. They're your tonal, but they're not your Nagual. They're not the awareness itself. And that's what the whole task of preliminary meditation is, to just discover who you are. Because if you go through this world and you don't know who you are, you're just going to be wandering around doing all kinds of loony tunes. And people do. Look at the government. Look at the wars. Look at the crazy way people think it's okay to make money. All right. Next one. And this is a good one too. But you have to reflect on these. You have to think about them. They have to really get into your gullet, and you spend days thinking about these things. These are kind of like Zen koans, simplified ones. Once a teacher asked a student, "Where are you from?" The student said he was from such and such a place. The teacher asked, "Do you think of that place?" The student said he often thought of it. The teacher said, "The thinker is the mind. What is thought of its environment?" The teacher said, "The thinker is the mind. What is thought of its environment?" In the environment are mountains, rivers, lands, buildings, peoples, animals, and so on. Now, turn your thoughts around to think of the thinking mind. Are there so many things there? Are there so many things there? Or another way. I'm going to do it one more time. And again, you should have to do this in your head. And again, it's on page 141 of this beautiful, beautiful book. Albeit a little bit difficult, and so I don't recommend the whole book for most folks, unless you're a therapist or something. The teacher said, "The thinker is the mind. What is thought of its environment? In the environment are mountains, rivers, lands, building, people, animals, and so on. Now turn your thoughts around and think of the thinking mind. Are there so many things there?" So before I ask you for follow-up, so let's say you're thinking about living back in Silicon Valley. There's roads, there's buildings, there's water fountains, there's libraries and cars. There's a bunch of things when you think about being back in the valley. But now you're in a different place. And so when you think about that place, there's all kinds of things in there. There's cars and buildings and roads and libraries and all the other stuff, right? And what the teacher's saying, okay, so that's what you're thinking. Now the mind that's thinking that, how many things are in that mind? He's making a distinction between the conceptual mind of memory, where you have all these images, and the mind itself, which has no images. It's just pure awareness. And this is the beginning. This is how you begin. Okay, follow up on that?
Yeah, so I tried doing that.
Perfect.
First of all, there was a lot of resistance when I was actually trying to find. And when I did try to find, I started thinking about it a bit more. It basically led to another movement of thoughts.
Okay. So what did you try to find?
I tried to think about the thinker who is thinking.
Okay, good. That's plenty. And this is great. These are practice questions. That's wonderful. So you're doing well, all right? So you tried to find something. What did you try to find? You said the thinker.
I tried to find yeah.
Okay.
And
the thinker is another object in your mind. Because what does the thinker look like to you?
exactly, that's what I was going to say. It was like an image for me, a thinker.
All right. So now you just have to get rid of the image. I mean, some people imagine there's a little person in here that's doing the thinking. Does that happen to you? Do you think there's a little person in here that's doing the real thinking?
I don't know about little person, but yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you, what color is the thinker?
White.
White. Interesting. I thought you were going to say clear.
It's like one of those white clouds you have in the comics.
Oh, you mean those bubble thoughts? Those bubble thoughts?
Yeah, bubble thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the thinker. That's a thought. So what's thinking of the bubble thought? No, work with me here. What's thinking of the bubble thought? So the bubble thought has to be a thought, right? You have to think a white cloud, a little bubble thought. So who's thinking of that white cloud?
Thinker. And
Good. Now that thinker, you're right, it's the thinker. Now what does that thinker look like?
I can't talk about it because the moment I talk about it, it's just a thought.
No, I know you believe that. I'm not asking you not to think. I'm asking you the characteristics of who or what it is that's thinking. And you can come up with images. That's not a problem. Don't see. This is your mind trying to get in the way. I'm just asking you: is it big? Is it small? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it warm? Is it rough? Is it smooth? I mean, what are the characteristics of the thinking mind? The mind that thinks, not the thoughts, but the mind that thinks.
So it's boundless, yet it is bounded. Like
Good.
I don't know.
Okay, let's go with the boundless first. If it's boundless, then what color is it?
It's transparent, I would say.
Good.
In a way.
It's transparent. Okay. Now you say it's bounded also, so let's go to that.
Bounded in the sense that I know for sure it doesn't live outside my body.
Okay. Where does it live?
That was something that I was trying to find as well. Like,
Okay. Well,
I
I've
just,
studied it. I've studied it my whole life, right? And I've studied people who have studied it their whole lives, and I've studied it for people across centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries. And the notion that it's in the body just doesn't make any sense. We've looked. We can't tell you where one thought comes from. We've been studying the brain. We've got all this great technology. We've got all this electrocephalograms, functional MRIs. We've got magnetoencephalopathy. We've got all kinds of. We've got fluorescent dyes, and we can see some activity. But that's at best it correlates with thought. So this consciousness, you say it's boundless, but then you say it's bounded. Which is it?
it's difficult.
Yes, it is.
It's,
Okay, so it's going to be very hard. It's going to be like a slap to the face, for your mind to acknowledge that wherever it is, the mind includes. It has to include whatever you're looking at. You know that, right? So if I'm looking out here and I see a tree, my brother, where now? It must be in my mind, right? If I see it.
yeah,
So
kind of.
my mind goes
Like,
at least as far as that tree.
yeah. Like, does it have to be like? Can't you see faraway things via your binoculars? That doesn't mean that those things are there in the binocular, right?
Yes, it does. The image certainly is in the binocular. Are you talking about binoculars in somebody's eyes?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I have an exercise for you. The next time you can, find a night with a nice bright round moon and go to a swimming pool at night that's crystal clear. And I want you to look at the reflection of the moon on the surface of the water. I want you to look at the moon bouncing off the floor of the pool. And I want you to look at the moon and the moonlight, all four of those. And you tell me where the moon is. And just contemplate it. Contemplate it. So, let's see. This is a hard thing to learn. I'm not minimizing it. What I'm wondering is now the right time for you to kind of let go of the boundaries you're putting on your mind. I think probably the best thing to do would be just learn more science and look at visual processing, for example, and then maybe study some Donald Hoffman, watch a YouTube. Because we cannot see what's out there. All we can see is what our senses allow us to see. So I see a tree, but a bird sees something totally different, and a frog doesn't see anything at all, because a frog only sees things that are moving, as I recall. Okay? And so with our eyes and our ears and our minds and our thoughts and our pressure sensors, we create a world. Let me
So
see if I
you
can
think
use
it's
an
a
analogy. Let me see if I
harassment,
can
right?
use an analogy of a video game. Have you ever been in a video game when you really felt like you were in it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, where are those electrons that are creating that world?
It's inside my mind.
Why not inside the software? Because inside the software it
It's
means
just
nothing.
ones and zeros.
It's just zeros and ones, right?
Oh, because I'm interpreting it, and whenever interpretation comes, then mind comes.
Good, 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 good. And so what happens when you turn the light around enough is that the interpretation starts to drop, and then you just see what is to a certain point, right? And then you drop back further to get to the Nagual, to get to the Buddha mind, to get to the primal face, the original spirit, the pristine creative. And all of these are, we say lower, but it's really everywhere. It's all at the same time. And so, again, you just keep practicing this. You have to just keep at it. A warrior is tenacious. But the stakes are high. It's a lifetime of joy instead of a lifetime of suffering. So the sooner you get there, the better. Right? Next question.
Yeah. So next question is, kind of related to the thing that you brought up.
Okay.
How to practice self-inquiry as done by Ramana Maharshi. Because whenever I try doing that, I end up arriving at that same thought loop again and again. Like, is there something else I can do?
How long have you been doing it?
Like, not regularly, but for some time. I would say
What
3
is
to
some
4
time?
weeks.
3 or 4 weeks?
Yeah,
How about 3 or 4 months, and then let's talk. Okay?
got it.
This is not a part-time job.
Okay.
I mean, you have a full-time job and then you have a full-time job. Thankfully, you could do them at the same time,
Yeah.
largely. But let's look what it says here. We just covered that. All right, so when you think of your hometown, you think of the buildings, the trees, the roads, the people, the shops, the restaurants, whatever, right? The smells. That's what you think of when you think of your hometown. Okay, so we know how to think about your hometown. Now, when you look over here, it's not over here, it's, at the mind, the actual mind that all these thoughts occur in, how many things are there? That's what the Zen master asks us to do. There's nothing there. It's empty. There's nothing there. And so that goes straight along with this practice. So you just practice those 6 pages in the morning until you tune your breath. You got to tune your breath, remember.
Wait. I had still one
And then when it gets
question.
when your mind settles down, then you can turn the light around and look at your mind. Not at the objects of mind, but at your mind. And when you look at your mind, tell me what you find, okay? And that's basically the practice of Ramana Maharshi. Everybody's doing the same thing, they just do it in different words, and with different details. Okay, next question.
Yeah, so this question, like, you may have to ring the bell. This question is more about time.
Time. Great. What is it good
Okay.
for? Absolutely nothing. Go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, Krishnamurti talks about time being always now. And to be honest, now I kind of understand it as a fact. Like, there is no way I can live in future or past.
Good.
Anything about future and past is thoughts. Like, it kind of feels suffocating, but
Why
at
does
the
it feel
same time,
suffocating?
this is the only limit we have in our life, I feel like you can never
And in our
live in
physics, by the
future
way,
or
and in our
past.
physics. But keep going.
Yeah, but he also introduces, like, then he asks this question.
Okay, this is Jiddu Krishnamurti. Go ahead. What questions does he ask?
uh, when where does an action takes place then?
Where does what take place?
Action about something or doing something. Where does it take place? Like, there should be some movement of time for an action to happen, right?
Okay, good question. You see this pencil? You see this sharpener?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm going to move this pencil into this pencil sharpener, okay? And I want you to
Yes.
tell me when each step is. Ready?
Yeah.
Where is this in time?
Uh,
Now.
Suppose
It's now.
t equal to 0 second. Now. Yeah. Now.
Where is it now?
The last old nows plus few seconds.
No, you added stuff.
No.
There's no past old now. There's no difference between this and this.
Okay.
This is in the now too, right?
Yeah.
Where's this? Is it in the past, the future, or the now?
True.
Pardon me?
Now. Now.
Where's this?
Still now.
Right. So it's just an eternal now. And if you go back to the Greeks, this has been a debate in logic, and there's a tale from the Greeks, and then there's others from other places where you put a turtle and a, well, I think you could just do it the very simple way. If you put a turtle on a straight track to get to an end a yard away, he'll never reach there logically. Because in the first unit of time, it'll take half the unit of time to get halfway, right?
Yeah.
And then it'll take some time to get a quarter way. And then it takes some time to get an eighth of a way left, right? There's an eighth of a way left. And then we get to 1/16th. We get to 1/16th, and then we get to 1/32nd, then we get to 1/64th, then we get to 1/28th, then we get to 5/12 or whatever. Then we get to and these keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller, but do they ever end mathematically? You're the mathematician. No. They don't, right? So how does anybody ever get anywhere? This is math, right? And this is logic, and this is, ancient. You studied this stuff in school, right? What's the name of this paradox? Zeno's paradox?
I don't know whether it's a paradox.
Even the models of the world...
Asymptote.
Pardon me? Yeah, you reach an asymptote in terms of the small amount, but you never reach the end.
Yeah.
So, what's the name of this? Is it Zeno's paradox? I think it is. And there's another illustration, I think, using a rabbit and a tortoise. But you can just look those up. The world does not work the way we think it does. David Hume proved all of this, by the way. Not just David Hume, but this has been going on for a long, long time. Probably 3,000 years at least. So we have these descriptions, and they taught you them in school, but unfortunately, they're not correct, especially about time. They don't even make sense mathematically. You know that, right? Don't just agree with me.
Even with Sorry. Like even with respect to clock time, it's really difficult to define what now is.
You can't define it. Because reality is outside of time and space. And I'm speaking a little bit prematurely, but you'll see. You'll see. Just keep going. That's the main thing. Keep going. And you're asking good questions. And these are the kind of questions that will set you free. I'm not joking. They will set you free. But it takes some effort. And you're making that, and that's great news. Okay, sir. So we've covered Krishnamurti. And how Krishnamurti says that in order to see anything at all, you have to be in the present, in the here, in the now, right? Eckhart Tolle, that's all he talks about is the eternal present, right? That you must be here, which is the only place you can be anyway. It's right here, right now. It's the only thing that's real. Everything else is a fantasy of the future or a memory of the past. And where do those even exist? And we've talked about the secret of the golden flower, how the Taoist and Buddhists look at it. And we've covered some Greek philosophers, Zeno, I think. I'm trying to wrap it up so where we can get, and then of course we're covering the Toltec seers of Mexico, those seers. They're all saying the same thing with regard to truth. Is that making sense? I want to make sure it makes sense to you. We've got a little time. We've got a little time. Okay, next question. I did the best I can. It's a tough question. Usually the Zen masters just boom, hit you on a stick until you go meditate for another 3 weeks. You ready? Question.
I think this is more about awakening experience.
Okay.
Again, something that I can never know.
What do you mean you can never know? What did you just say?
Not never know, like I can never know right now because I haven't experienced it.
Well, how do you know it's not going to happen right now?
That's a good question. I don't know.
If you carry that belief around, you're going to block it for your whole life. It can happen anytime. Believe me, I know. And so do a lot of other people. Ask them. They say, oh yeah, I had it on my calendar. I was going to wake up on a Thursday, maybe sometime in April. I figured it all out, and that's how I was going to do it. That's not how it works at all. You get a knock of the spirit, boom, pa, And you don't know when it's going to happen. You just have to prepare yourself. All right?
So about this, I think, okay, this is not the same Krishnamurti. This is UG Krishnamurti says that there is no, like, you can't awaken through volition, like it just happens to you. And he also says that when it happens, it's like a physical torture for him
For
when
him,
he
yeah.
woke up, because it felt like a river flowing through him. At the same time, that river doesn't care about what his limits are. So it was torturous experience for him.
Well,
So what
he has
do
some
you
kind of
think?
neurological thing going on. But where are you reading this?
I was reading some, I don't remember, I think it was some website, I forgot,
Okay.
where he talks
Was it
about this.
Krishnamurti himself saying it?
UG Krishnamurti, not the Jiddu.
Okay. Well, U.G. Krishnamurti, okay. Uh, don't listen to U.G. Krishnamurti. The guy's a fraud. Don't listen to that guy because he has the same last name. I mean, the guy
Yeah,
he had a great, his name happened to be the same as the best brand in Dharma marketing, Dharma marketing for 50 years. But that's all. That's the only similarity. And he was Indian. So why will you listen to Uji Krishnamurti? Don't do that. Don't if
but what
you can
about his
waste all kinds of
experience?
time with fakers and charlatans and wannabes and mountebanks and all kinds of don't do that. Don't do that. And also confuses me, confuses everybody else.
Yep, got it.
Read about his death if you want to know how evolved U.G. Krishnamurti was. And this is not about him. Just get that off of your YouTube, man. Why would you go off
Yep,
like that? This is what the mind does. It goes, well, this sounds kind of similar. He's got the same last name, or he is from India, and he is, saying he's, enlightened and all that, but you can't tell the difference between an enlightened person or not right now, and that's why I have to warn you. You can't tell the difference. You can't tell about Sadhguru. You can't tell about, Osho. You can't tell about any of these folks. You wouldn't know an enlightened person if you saw one, because you expect them to have a certain kind of demeanor. Ooh, oh, ooh, ooh, beneficent smile and a nice demeanor and all that. That's not what fully enlightened Sufis look like, for example. And some are, temperamentally different, and some, have different roles in the world. Some of them are out there working. I mean, the Secretary of the Treasury of India is a Sufi, or was a Sufi, or something like that. Or so I've heard. I never met him. So be careful. Don't put garbage in your mind. Keep going. Another question, but not from that guy, not from that clown.
no, uh, no, not really.
Okay, good. All right. So again, the more, I started watching some Hulu, the TV app with commercials because I didn't
Yeah,
want to pay that much money to, for a few shows. And I have been horrified by the advertising schedule. It's incessant, pathogenic. Pathogenic means causes disease. Uh, Indoctrination, inundation, the use of suggestion on people who are suggestible. I mean, literally 80% of it is people trying to plant ideas in people's mind. Oh, your hair's too thin. Oh, your penis isn't hard enough. Oh, you're too fat or you're too skinny, or you might get this, or you could get that, and you need to do this and that, and it always involves them making quite a bit of money because they have to pay for those ads, right? The price of those ads goes into the price of the medication, obviously. And then there was a break. I thought, oh great, this is not a pharmaceutical ad, and they were trying to sell lottery tickets. Now they
I
allow
know, I know.
gambling on TV. What the hell? And then I thought, okay, well, all right, it can't all be that. And then the next ad was selling hard liquor on TV. I mean, there's people that are alcoholics that, for them it triggers a conditioned response. You don't do that on TV. You don't show hard liquor on TV like that. Bad enough you show wine and beer. So something's going wrong, very wrong, and it's been happening for a while in this country. Only 2 countries in the world allow that, New Zealand and the United States. Now, why does every other country in the world say, you cannot do that to people? Sell pharmaceutical drugs directly to them because it causes all kinds of problems. That's well known. So I don't know why we're doing it, but I'm just using that as an example of why. You must keep the faith, but guard your mind because they're coming at you from every angle now. You have no way of knowing, like TikTok, Instagram, X. The AIs have algorithms that are designed to feed you up exactly what will keep you on. And they're sophisticated, and they're going to get more sophisticated. So, you have any more questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think, I was reading, I am reading the Scott Peck's third book.
Oh, good.
Ruthless
Scott Peck is good.
And he talks about the same thing that you're talking about.
What year is his book?
About how... Sorry?
What year is his book? Roughly.
I don't remember, but I think the name of the book was The Road Less Traveled and Beyond.
Probably the
And
80s or 90s or something like that. Yeah. They changed the law during my lifetime.
Thinking.
I'm sorry?
He exactly talks about this simplistic thinking that everyone has, because of which, and like the vested interests of all these corporations to like actually send have ad campaigns like you described.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's not. You can't blame the CEOs because their job. These guys aren't doctors. They're not healers. They're not nurses. They're not therapists. They're not counselors. They're nothing like that. They're businessmen, and they only see dollars because that's their job. If they started caring about people, they'd lose their job. So I mean, we've got a completely sick system, is what I'm saying, and we need to pass laws. I'm not a big fan of laws. But some things we do to protect our children and to protect ourselves. And this should be one in the future because with the new AIs, they'll be able to tell exactly where you're weak. And they can advertise to don't get me started on it. But anyway, so now, another question?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like with the advent of AIs, the books prior to current year would be way more valuable because anything after this year would have some component of AI in it, and
very good.
I don't know.
So see, now you're starting to get wise. That's very nice. That's very good. Yeah, this is how wisdom comes, by being thoughtful and being educated and being informed. And while both keeping the faith, guarding your mind from these screens, the screen time on Reddit. I mean, it's the worst. I mean, you keep going and going and going, and before you know it, you've lost your mind, and then you suffer when you don't have it, and sometimes when you do have it. Okay, last question.
No.
Okay, good. All right, sir. Keep the faith. Guard your mind. Minimize screen time. Minimize it. You don't have time for that crap. Read books, and curate your YouTube feed. And the best money you could probably spend these days for entertainment would be to make sure you have a private YouTube subscription where you can get educational videos because they are really, really great. So I've talked about some of the bad things about the modern world. The great things are you can educate you can go as far as you want to go if you curate, if you control your video feed to where the only thing that comes on there is good, nourishing stuff. It's something that gives something to you rather than just takes from you. And there's plenty of content like that on YouTube, I notice. And so use it, don't abuse it, and do not let it abuse you. Okay, sir?
Yes.
Keep the faith, guard your mind. Take good care.
Yep. Bye.